Hello, my name is Alex Lynn, and today I'll be presenting on the key factors behind academic achievement, with specific respect to Finnish and Confucian cultural values. So first of all, why is this important? Education is very strongly linked to economic success, and every single nation around the world right now is looking for ways to improve their educational systems. And it's very important for them to find a specific method to do so. But if you take a look at the top performers in today's world in education, we see China, Korea, and Finland. They apparently don't have anything to do with each other. But we'll see very soon that they do have a shared set of cultural values that we'll look into. But first of all, to simply establish a basis for this kind of evaluation, I'm going to use the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA. And PISA provides a sufficient international breadth. It works with 75 nations and 34 different partner nations. And in fact, they actually test general competencies of students at the end of compulsory education. And it has been widely accepted as an international standard for academic and educational evaluation. When you take a look at the actual results from PISA, it's very easy to see that Finland and Shanghai, China here, do perform very statistically significantly above the OECD average, as well as, unfortunately, the United States. And the big question is, why? Why does this happen? When you take a look at education systems as a whole, it's sometimes difficult to figure out the exact factors and values that cause success, simply because there's so many variables to look at. But the thing that you're looking for when you're trying to find some kind of general basis to find those values that promote high education, then only one of these really applies, and that's culture. The reason we're looking at culture is because culture can be shared cross-nationally. It's about the background of a set of people and the exact values that they share. And as a result, they have a very large basis that can be used to apply to many, many different nations at the same time. And that's exactly what we'll use to take a look at Finland and the Confucian Society. So let's take a look at the map. So here's a map of the world. Finland and Confucian societies are pointed out here. It's very obvious that they are very, very far geographically from one another. So it's safe to assume that they have very different historical, cultural backgrounds. Since they are so different, it'll be very interesting to take a look at them and find out what exactly makes these values come out of these countries. And to do that, we need to take a look at the histories of these various regions. So I'm going to start by talking about the geopolitics of the Finnish country. So they have been an agrarian society until relatively recently, until within the past 150 years or so. And as a result, a lot of the values of that agrarian societies are still present in Finnish society today. So for example, a lot of that emphasis on hard work and those collectivist values of mutual responsibility that are actually integral to maintaining the success of an agrarian lifestyle. In addition, we have the influence of communism. Up until the year 1917, Finland was actually the Grand Duchy of Finland under Russia. So as a result of all the communist uprisings that are happening during that time, it's very, very easy to see how communism can have a very, very strong effect on Finland. Specifically, this comes into effect with the Finnish Civil War of 1917. In this case, it was one of the bloodiest civil wars in European history. Over 30,000 Finns died, and to give you an idea of how many that was out of a population of about 3 million. So 1% of the population was killed in the Civil War. Specifically, this was actually caused by socialist and communist ideas that were brought in. And what came out of this was a very, very strong sense of national shock and trauma, and the realization that a national consensus was needed on many national issues as a way to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. And this is specifically applied to education, in which after the Finnish Civil War, there's been pretty much total consensus on educational policy in Finland ever since, even to modern times. Now, just to take a quick look at some other factors that will apply to Finland, we have small rural schools. In this case, with the small population of Finland and the small size of these schools, the onus is entirely upon the teachers to provide a strong educational foundation to maintain the success of the students academically, as well as the economic success of the nation as a whole. So as a result, Finnish teachers enjoy a relatively high cultural status compared to many other nations. In fact, there are actually more students, a larger percentage of Finnish students go to for master's degrees to follow a profession in teaching than many, many other regions around the world, which is significant here. In addition, something that might seem a little irrelevant would be long days during the summer. What this actually does is it promotes a longer daylight time for students to actually read, and It just so happens that this phenomenon, as well as the extensive library system in Finland, has promoted a very, very strong cultural focus and passion for reading among students, something that has been linked to the highest test scores in PISA and other academic evaluations in the category of reading competencies. So to just quickly summarize the Finnish values that we've had, we see a sense of collectivism, a sense of national consensus, an emphasis on teaching and education, and a promotion of reading, all from these various historical, geopolitical factors that we've taken a look at in Finland. Now it's time to look at the other side of the world, so Confucian societies. Now, the origins of Confucian societies and the values that they have are very, very different from the ones that you see in Finland. Rather than from taking their background from a historical basis, they actually follow a moral, spiritual, and religious code taught by a very famous philosopher, Confucius, after which this entire philosophy is named. He was actually a philosopher in the 5th century BC, and his ideas were able to propagate very widely to many, many different East Asian nations. Something this allowed for was a large sense of cultural inertia, where all of the denizens of all of these communities and countries actually came to follow these ideas. So kind of the Confucian analog to the national consensus that we saw before. In addition, Confucian societies also provide a very, very strong emphasis on learning. Learning was actually seen as a way to achieve spirituality, and specifically reading and reading classics was a means to achieve learning. It's very clear to see in this way how learning was very much emphasized within Confucian societies. This is then further compounded with the entire imperial examination system, which theoretically made it possible for any male in Confucian society to ascend to the position of a high-ranking government official simply by studying very hard and learning and performing well on these imperial examination tests. Therefore, once again, a very, very strong emphasis on learning, in this case, with relation to social elevation. Now, to quickly talk about relationships within these Confucian societies, we have a strong sense of societal interdependence and the preservation of harmony between many of these groups. And this follows very much from Confucian texts. There's an entire tome on the idea of harmony and how to preserve it between people. And specifically, there's a very, very strong statement on student-teacher harmony. Teachers, in addition, were respected very, very highly in Confucian society as actually spiritual and moral models due to the entire structure of Confucian philosophy and whatnot. They were looked upon very highly by members of that society. And as well as mutual responsibility was also provided by this kind of sense of relationships in which, since so many people were depending on you, it was on you to do your best to improve yourself for the good of the whole. Now, to quickly summarize these Confucian values again, we have the emphasis on collectivism and hard work, that cross-national system of beliefs from the cultural inertia of Confucianism. We had that cultural respect for teachers, as well as an emphasis on education and a promotion of reading. So now that we've gone and laid out the factors that cause these values in Finnish Confucian societies, it's time to look at the bigger picture. Now, if you see here, we have all the values that we talked about before. But specifically, we've been able to identify a set of values that overlap between the two cultures. Let's start with high status of teachers. In Finland, it's because they're absolutely necessary to promote the education and economic success of the country. In Confucian societies, it's because of the cultural emphasis on spiritual and moral model of teachers. That same thing follows with the emphasis on education. In Finland, once again, it goes back to the educational and economic standpoint. In Confucian societies, it's gone back to achieving spirituality. We have the promotion of reading that has been seen to be so integral to success in reading aptitude. So in Finnish society, we saw that from the long days in the library system. And Confucian society, much of it was from that promotion of reading as a means to learn. Going back to hard work, we have that stemming from the agrarian communist societies and influences on Finland, as well as in Confucian societies from that sense of mutual interdependence and societal responsibility, which all both tie back into collectivism, those ideas that we discussed before, present in both Finnish and Confucian societies. Finally, we have that sense of societal consensus. In Finland, once again, from the Finnish Civil War, Confucian societies simply because of how long it's been around and so ingrained in those cultures. And now that we've identified all these values and factors behind academic success, it's time to take the next step. And that's to take a deeper look at each of these values and see how we can go about applying them and integrating them into existing education systems to benefit education systems from all around the world. Thank you.